My guest today is one of the most beloved actors in Mexico, a gent who's become adored and feared across the United States. You will know him as Javi in season 4 of Ozark on Netflix. He also happens to be a massive, massive football fan, Barcelona aficionado, El Tri diehard, a man who loves football so much he actually starred in a show about it. No, not you, Jason Sudeikis. Welcome to the gent who plays the greatest loose cannon TV crime lord nephew since Christopher Moltisanti. It's Mr. Alfonso Herrera.
Rog, it's a pleasure to be here with you. You made Alexis Lalas and his commentaries look not that good. You made it so big and so amazing that I'm so happy to be here.
Alfonso, you're gonna get me into deep, deep trouble. It is
You didn't say that. I was the one who said that. You didn't say that. I did it. And Alexis Lalas, he's a great commentator. He's amazing. But thank you. I'm more than happy to be here, man.
It's a joy to be with you at this moment in your career. You are now a bona fide global star. But back in the day, you were once a massive, massive teen heartthrob in Mexico and the Spanish-speaking world as a member of Rabede, one of the best-selling Latin boy bands of all time. Take us back to those early days of faux punk, distressed school uniforms, and Ronaldo levels of hair gel.
Well, Ronaldo levels of hair gel. That was a good one.
Alexi Lalas wrote that line for me.
Oh man, it was great. Actually, it was amazing because we had the possibility of traveling all over the world. We went to every single place in South America. We performed at Maracaná. We performed at the Morumbi in Sao Paulo. We performed in el Estadio Nacional in Chile, creating like an amazing connection with football. But it was great, man. And it was amazing to see the connections of the teenagers at that time with this specific project. It gave this project a great possibility of going elsewhere. And well, here I am. It was a great project to be in.
You know, you did do it all. 32 city US tours. You roamed the globe. But Heartthrob is well known to be one of the most challenging celebrity roles. What's the most important lesson of life you learned from the days of being a teen sensation?
All those things are momentary. All that type of, that perception it's a moment. And it's great to be known, but it's even better to be happy with the job that you have. I feel more comfortable with the job and with the projects that I have right now. And I think that my voice right now sounds louder and sounds even more clear on different stages, on different scenarios. It was a great opportunity. It was a great project. And I will always be grateful for that specific moment. But I'm very happy, very lucky to have the possibility of doing amazing TV shows.
It's just a moment, just a fleeting moment. It's how I feel about hair. But you are currently working in Ozark, the beloved cult Netflix show about backwoods drug dealers, which makes any young viewer who watches it aspire to become a money launderer. And Ozark has a pretty intense fan base. It's known for really nuanced performances. I mean, what a cast. Jason Bateman, Julia Garner, great friend of the pod, Laura Linney. And you entered in season 4. What does it feel like to be the acting equivalent of a late substitute who comes on and completely changes a game? Essentially the Divock Origi of prestige television.
Well, the first thing that I was thinking when I was going to set first day, it was, Alfonso, please don't f it up. Don't f it up, Alfonso. I don't know if I can say that here. I don't know, but that was the first thing that came into my mind. As you already said, it's such a beloved show. It's so well written. It's so well performed. The direction is impeccable. So having that pressure, having that responsibility, it's a privilege.
Oh, that's exactly what Divock Origi says. You've done the equivalent of shoulder the ball into the net. You play Javi, an ambitious and eccentric cartel heir. No spoilers, but you kill a lot of people in very violent ways. But I've got to say, you never seem scarier than when eating oysters and drinking champagne.
I think that to really understand the vicious and the virtues of this guy, we've seen so many stories about drug lords. We've seen so many stories about money laundering. And The first thing is to understand the humanity of this guy, the three-dimensional part of this guy. It's not just trying to portray someone that is bad or someone that wants to kill people. There are many other things that nurture this character, specifically the fears that he has. He wants to show himself that he's capable of doing something. He wants to show himself that he is an important member of the family. And that comes from a very deep fear that he has. And also, every single time that he's on camera or that when he's on a scene, he knows that he's not welcome. He feels so much pleasure and he enjoys that so much that I think that it was a very fun character to play. I just had fun. I had a lot of fun. And because he's so unpredictable, there were so many possibilities to play on set. And having then Jason Bateman in front, having Laura Linney in front, it just exploded and gave much more possibilities for the scene.
God, that three-dimensional mindset you've just described, Javi is essentially the Jose Mourinho of cartellers.
It's a very good comparison. Hot-headed, like, yeah.
And ultimately always pushing the destroy button. But the final season of Ozark is split into two halves, Game of Thrones style. Part 2, about to drop, April 29th. How does that affect you? Are people going mad just lighting up your phone wanting to know what happens? Your family, friends, Uber drivers, everybody wants to know. They're begging you to say, hola, Marty. How have you experienced it?
The last thing that happened to me, I had an Uber drive. And all of a sudden, the driver said, so what do you do? And I said, well, I'm in the entertainment business. I don't want to go too deep because, you know. And he says, oh, cool. What do you do? I said, well, okay, I'm going to say, I'm an actor. Oh, and what was the last thing that you did? Well, I did Ozark. He's like, come on, shut up. I watched the whole thing. Who are you? And I said, well, I'm Javi. So he went outside from the freeway. He stopped. He looked at me and then he started yelling, I have Javi, I have Javi, I have Javi, I have Javi. And then he called his wife, he called his daughter. He was trying to introduce members from the family. And yeah, it was fun. It was fun. So all sorts of things, friends, family, and many drivers, they don't hesitate on showing their love.
5 stars to that man for his rating. By the way, Javi only needs 2 seasons to destroy things. Jose Mourinho often takes 3. Away from acting, your first love is football. Take us back to the early days, Alfonso, when you fell in love as a kid playing in the streets of Guadalajara.
I love football since I have consciousness, since I have memory. When I lived in Guadalajara, I lived in a street on a regular neighborhood over there. The street was divided from the kids from the upper side and the kids from the lower side of the street. I lived in the deep south side of the street. And we always created these games around 4 p.m. when we finished our homeworks, when we finished all our duties home. And so we went out, and every single day, the guys from up street and down street, we played against each other. And at the back of the neighborhood, I lived near the Club Atlas.
Los Zorros.
Yes, I played youth leagues over there in Atlas. I was not very good. I just enjoyed the game. I had the possibility of playing. And from time to time, coaches told me, okay, you can come here on a Wednesday to play against another team. But it was school day. And my mom said, you're crazy. You're not going to go to those games. You're going to go to school. You're not going to be a football player. And that's it. And even though I liked football that much, I didn't have possibilities of having a future in that sport as a player.
You're essentially the Mexican Jack Harrison, but you grew up in a golden age of Atlas football. Rafael Marquez, Daniel Osorno, Pavel Pardo.
Guardado.
Who were you when you were playing on the schoolyard in your mind? What player were you?
There were many football players from the Mexican football team at that time. And I think that the 1994 World Cup Mexico team was one of the best. Luis Flores, Garcia Aspe, Hugo Sanchez, Claudio Suarez, Ramirez Perales, Jorge Campos. There was some point when I was playing at the park that I loved to be the goalkeeper. And I always fancied to be Jorge Campos. Each and every single kid that was on the goal, we always dreamed to be Jorge Campos. But I had to say that one of the best football players, Hugo Sanchez. I saw myself as Hugo
Hugo Sanchez was curls, tight shorts, and just goal after goal after goal. One of the most potent goal scorers I've ever seen. But Jorge Campos, I mean, not just an amazing goalkeeper, the greatest goalkeeper jersey of all time. They're almost works of art, what he wore on his body.
Yes, and also you have to talk about the personality, the personality of Jorge Campos. His personality was one of the most eccentric, fun guys, and also he was very short guy. He was an incredibly short guy. I mean, if you compared the goalkeeper Courtois from Real Madrid, if you put Courtois against Jorge Campos, it's something ridiculous. And even though he was a very short guy, he was incredibly talented. And how he jumped.
He played goalkeeper. He could also play striker. He could do it all.
He did everything. He did everything. In Pumas, he played many, many times as a striker. And sometimes in the Mexican football team, in many friendly games, he scored many goals also.
He could do it all. But you're a very modest man, Alfonso, when you play down your own techers on the field, because you were good enough to parlay your skills into a starting role in El Diaz, an epic television show about a Mexican player who won the Under-20 World Cup and was then catapulted to stardom, a bit like a Mexican entourage in cleats. Now, when you're a football player who becomes an actor in a football show and you're shooting game scenes, do you ever completely lose it while you're shooting? Forget the choreography and the storyline of what's meant to happen on the field. You just I just want to smash the ball home.
Yes, there were many times when we were shooting the training scenes and scenes that we were playing, that when we were shooting a game, there were many times that we were just playing. And when they say cut, we just wanted the game to keep on going.
In real life, you became a huge Barcelona fan. I think it was a combination of the roots of their football under the great Johan Cruyff, reinforced by the arrival there of Mexican legend Rafa Marquez in 2003 and the 6 glory-filled seasons that followed. What was it about the Barcelona mythology and their tactical reality which reached out and grabbed you?
The way they played. First of all, Rafa Marquez, he was a very important football player in Atlas. It's a team that I like a lot. And my favorite team is Pumas because it comes from the family. But Rafa Marquez is one of the most important football players that defended. He played in Monaco, then he played in Barcelona. And when he incorporated that team, the way Barcelona plays, it's very appealing to see. The style, the way they move, they touch. It's not such a vertical game. It's an horizontal game where they have to have a lot of patience. And some people, they don't like that style. They want to go forward, to score goals. And I think that it's beautiful. The beauty of the game is to see the beauty of the whole thing. I think that there are 3 teams that revolutionize the way we see football right now. The Ajax from Cruyff, the Milan from Arrigo Sacchi, and the Barcelona from Pep Guardiola.
And Everton under Frank Lampard, but I give you the first 3.
Everton, you were saying that?
Everyone in the world looks at the Everton way of playing and says that is undoubtedly up there with the 3 that you have mentioned, but Barcelona's current reality actually is quite Evertonian. It's painful in many ways to witness Serginho Dest aside. Now, you follow the Barcelona story wherever it goes, which means that you've got quite a soft spot for Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. What is it that you love about Guardiola football?
His mentality. He makes something that very few coaches achieve. Convince 22 players that they are the greatest players in the world. He gives them the confidence to go out and to give the best. And he is a very important and very interesting coach because he understands each and every single player. And I saw one conversation that long time ago of how he manages to go to each and every single player and try to speak their language. One, he can talk about family, he can talk about friends. The other one, don't talk about friends, just talk about soccer, just talk about tactics. And the other one, just don't talk about anything and just make him do what he does the best. So he understands the game and he understands the player in a very, very particular way. And not so long ago, I saw a documentary of Pep, of what he did in Manchester City. It has a lot to do with soccer and it has to do also a lot with life. And that is what I love about him. He's just an amazing coach that understands the game in a very deep way.
Be a good film director for the way you describe it.
Actually, there's a very interesting conversation between Pep Guardiola and Trueba, a Spanish director. It's the comparison between filmmaking and playing soccer, how a director talks to actors and how a coach talks to football players. There's a great similarity on how coaches and directors, they need to speak to their actors or football players. That conversation is just the best. If you haven't seen it, please watch it.
I once spent an afternoon with Pep, and he told me that great attacking is like improv jazz. You know, he sees his forward line like all stars who are willing or forced by the nature of their teammates' insane talents to be very much part of the collective, but it's an improvisational collective, a bit like the Miles Davis sextet with John Coltrane and Cannonball Adderley. I mean, that's how he sees the attacking thing. I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yes, and also if the stars align, and then you have Xavi, you have Iniesta, you have Piqué, you have Busquets, you have Jordi Alba, you have Messi, you name it. And all of a sudden, then you can improvise with those guys. I mean, it's just a beautiful jazz night, you know?
Kind of sky blue. I know, above all, you're a Mexican national team El Tri fan. Got to ask you, how are you feeling about them right here, right now?
Not so good, man. Not so good. Because we Mexicans, we always saw Mexico as the most important team in CONCACAF. And look what's happening with Canada. Look what is happening with the US. Look with what's happening with Alfonso Davies. Look what is happening with Pulisic. They are just great players that are developing their skills in Europe in very well-known leagues. I mean, we have very good players that are developing in Spain, in Portugal, but it has to do with the mentality of wanting more. And unfortunately, the Mexican league gives a lot of money to Mexican players, but unfortunately, not so much inner, like this hunger to just go there and go for everything.
I am fascinated by that. What you say about Mexican players, so much talent. But I remember chatting to the last manager who took Mexico to the World Cup, Juan Carlos Osorio. And he told us he couldn't understand why so few Mexican players, as talented as they are, like to leave the comfort of Liga MX and play in Europe. How do you understand it?
It's a business. It has nothing to do with soccer. It has to do with business. It has to do with club managers. It has to do with the Mexican Federation. It has to do with giving the priority to business versus developing skills. If you see what's happening with Argentina, it's a country that has probably half of the population of Mexico, and they already won 2 World Cups. We have 130 million people. We are die-hard soccer fans, football fans. And the most important thing we've achieved is just a Confederations Cup. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing, but I'm just saying, just look at the numbers, and it doesn't make sense. We have a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent, but that talent can't go up because of things that has nothing to do with talent. It has to do with money.
When Mexican stars do venture abroad, do you follow them emotionally? Chucky Lozano at Napoli, Diego Lainez at Real Betis, and the headband of wonder Raul Jimenez at Wolves.
Of course. I like very much the way Chucky Lozano plays, what he achieved in Napoli, Raul Jimenez in Wolverhampton. I mean, there are players that have a natural talent. Jimenez, he's an amazing player that has developed himself by effort and by mentality.
Yes. I was at Wolves a couple of weeks after Jimenez signed, and I asked the press officer why they signed him. He said, our club have less than 1 million followers on social. Jimenez alone has like 3.6 million. And they felt they were signing more than just a striker. They were signing the hearts and minds of the Mexican fan base. But my God, he's delivered with joy and clinicality on a team that have been a wonder all season. The workmanlike effort, as you say, where does that come from? Because it feels very unusual.
With the decisions that he makes. I'm going to give another example. For example, Guillermo Ochoa, the goalkeeper from Mexico, his decisions were actually in order for him to grow. Probably he didn't want to feel comfortable just in the Mexican Football League. He wanted to go outside and probably be on a team that's going to be 9th or 8th in the General League. But he wanted to go for more instead of just staying there at the club. And look what Raúl Jiménez did. He went from America, then he went to Atletico de Madrid. He didn't go so well. Then he went to Portugal, and afterwards he landed in the Premier League. So it's this hunger. He wants to win. And look what happened to him after the huge, exactly what happened to him. It was a terrible thing that happened. And many, many people thought that it was going to be very difficult for him to come back. And just his mentality, his strength, gave him everything to go forward.
We in the United States follow our stars wherever they go. Like Christian Pulisic, we live and die with every kick of the ball with these young guns. Which brings us to the USA. How do you view our US baby Eagles? Here we are, living in a remarkable time, caught between our dreams, which are seismic, and the realities, which are less ecstatic. How do you see this generation of young American talents, Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Tyler Adams, thriving with Champions League caliber clubs? And well, did you ever think we'd see a day where the United States was producing this level of talent?
It was something that was going to occur because of the amount of money the US Federation is giving to the US League. The inner league is growing a lot, bringing in lots of international names that even though they're starting to retire in Europe, it's bringing a lot of attention for football fans in the US. Something that is also playing in favor of the US team is young players going outside, going to the Premier League, going to the Spanish clubs, and actually adding up to the principal team. What's happening with Dest in Barcelona, what's happening with Pulisic in Chelsea, and going back and really creating a difference in CONCACAF and playing against Mexico. I mean, it's the worst nightmare for Mexico right now because 5 or 7 years ago, if you went and see a Mexico-US match, you felt a little bit more comfortable. But nowadays, it's not that easy.
So how do you, as a massive El Tri fan, view our young team now? With disdain, with respect, with annoyance, with fear? What's your dominant human emotion?
With respect. I think that we right now see the US team as a team that we need to respect. We always respect our rivals. But right now, if you're going to play a final against the US or against Canada, you have to see the US national team with more respect.
Oh, you're a bigger man than I am, Alfonso, and I have to admit publicly Canada is our daddy. But the US and Mexico are of course poised to clash when World Cup qualifying resumes at Estadio Azteca, which is less a football stadium, more a fortress, a mythical venue that really could have been a figment of George R.R. Martin's imagination, a steep bank stronghold perched 7,200 feet above sea level, built out of 100 tons of concrete, laid on top of volcanic rock. You've been there. How would you describe it?
It's a very difficult stadium for people that are coming from the outside because you feel the presence of the people in front of you. It's like a waterfall of people falling down. Many players that go there and play there, they feel the importance and the presence. It's a stadium that hosted 2 World Cups. It's a mythical stadium. I would say it's a cathedral. I remember when I was a young kid, when my dad took me to Seoul, when I was 6 years old, and to see the field, like the impeccable green, the impeccable colors from the people, from the football players, compared to what you were playing in the streets. And it was like a dream come true. I remember I went to a box match in the Azteca Stadium. It was Julio Cesar Chavez. And I remember when I was a kid, I went into the field and I grabbed some grass from the Azteca Stadium when I was 6 years old, and I kept it. And it was like a very tiny treasure for me. And I treasure them till I was like 14 years old. And after that, I didn't know what happened to that little piece of grass.
I love your line about a waterfall of fans coming down on you. When you speak to US players about the experience of what it actually feels like to play at the Azteca, It's a venue like no other, to be hounded by 105,000 frenzied fans, eager to delight in American misery, battling against the Mexican team, as well as the heat, the altitude, the smog, the noise. The US record there in qualifying: 0 wins, 3 draws, 6 losses. Mexico has only actually lost twice in 32 qualifying games, not since 2013. And the US players I've interviewed have said that the fear kicks in as soon as you land at the airport. Alfonso, what do you expect from this upcoming game?
I think it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a tie. I think it's going to be a 0-0 or a 1-1.
Bite your arm off. What would Javi's pre-game advice to the El Tri players be before kickoff?
He would scare them. He would go to the locker rooms and he would just threaten them to win the game. But
yes, he'd go in there. He'd just say, blood over everything, blood over everything.
Blood over everything. And then he would go to a suite and then he would enjoy the game with some beer and a couple of oysters.
Oh, the oysters are what will make them crap their pants. I do need to understand, what does it mean to the Mexican nation, this relationship between your national football team and you, and the difference between success and failure?
Right now, success for the Mexican team would mean, first of all, qualify to the World Cup. Then, if we go to Qatar, have the possibility to have the 3 games, the 4th game, and then have a 5th game. That would be a huge win for the Mexico team. Since 1994, we haven't been able to transport ourselves to the 5th game. And that would be a massive win, at least for the Mexican fans. And I see, and I say this with a lot of respect, I see the US national team very capable of going outside from the 3 games and going to the 4th game. Don't know if they will be able to go to a 5th game, but they have a very strong team in order to achieve the 4th game.
What would it mean to the public to succeed if this Mexican national team made them proud?
I remember I was very young. I saw the World Cup from Italy in 1990. Mexico didn't go to that World Cup. It was a tragedy for us, for Mexicans. And then qualifying for 1994 World Cup in the US, it was a massive win. And it was like the first time I recall a big game for the Mexican team. And I remember all the streets from Guadalajara were completely packed with Mexican fans, with flags. And in Mexico City, the Ángel de la Independencia packed with people. And you see the passion that fans have. And I'm saying that there were like 200,000 fans in the street in Mexico City cheering for their national team going back to a World Cup in 1994. If we are capable to go to this 5th game, I don't know if we're going to be able to achieve that strength or that a massive amount of people going to the streets. But it would be huge versus each and every single time we didn't qualify for the 5th game. And I remember when Mexico lost against the US national team in Korea, that was painful. That was very painful.
What did it represent? Failure, an embarrassment, a humiliation? It was more than just a loss of a game, Alfonso.
It was more than that. It was, we felt at that time that we were CONCACAF kings, and not being able to go to this 5th game and losing against the US national team in a World Cup, it was much more than painful. I would prefer to not qualify to this 4th game than to lose against the US national team. It was more than painful. I remember I was watching this game 2 a.m. in the morning with a friend here in Mexico City. When the game finished, we didn't say a thing. We just went out of our house, we went to sleep, and we didn't want to talk about football in a week. It was painful, man.
There's something about Mexican football. You are not a nation with that many footballers that break out into the global conversation. Football is very much how you measure how you are seen by the world. There's something deeply important, what that Mexican national team represents for the soul of Mexico, right?
I think that the Mexican pride is much more than just a Mexico team. I think that there is something bigger in our culture. There is something bigger in our spirit. But at the same time, it's great to see your team win. It's great to see your hopes and dreams in the field win and having success. The beauty about this game is bringing people together, bringing nations together, bringing a country together. And it's one of the few moments where all Mexico comes together in order to see the Mexico team.
There's something reassuring about it. No matter whether life's going well or life's going badly, football going well is always there for you.
Football is always going to be there. And that is a very good news. That's good news for football fans. And one more thing that I have to say that has to do with experience and football with me. I had the possibility of going in 2013 to go to the Confederations Cup in Brazil and watching the Brazilian national team in Brazil is something that a football fan needs to do before they die.
I was there. That was the year in which they sang the national anthem with earth-shattering noise and tears streaming. Describe what it was like for you to witness that.
It's seeing a stadium to breathe by itself. When Neymar touched the ball, when he was going forward and feeling that energy of how the stadium starts to breathe, it's something unique. A football fan, a die-hard football fan, needs to go to Brazil and watch the Brazilian national team at home. It's something that should be in their bucket list.
God, I feel, I've got to say, Brazil and Americana, I feel the same about watching Mexico at the Azteca. And obviously, Everton at Goodison Park, those three all equal in every world football imagination. Alfonso, you are a gent who is at the top of the entertainment world right now. Smash hit show. I'm sure scripts are flooding in. But when you experience beautiful football from Mexico or Barca or Pep's team, can you describe the feeling you get inside and why there's nothing else like it in the world?
Not so long ago, I saw Barcelona-Valencia, and for the first time in many years, I saw Barcelona playing as Barcelona again. So it gives comfort, it gives tranquility, and just sit there, watch, and enjoy.
May one day you and I both go to the Azteca together to watch Mexico and the US. Please God, it will be a draw that day.
You are more than welcome, my friend. Please come whenever you want. We are very good hosts. And afterwards, we can go have some tequilas.
As long as it's not oysters and champagne, I will drink anything with you, you beautiful human being.
Nothing, nada de eso.
Alfonso, Godspeed, courage, gracias.
A ti, abrazos.